Okay. All right, let's get going to the next shaila. Yesterday, what we concluded regarding surpluses in when there's a surplus in tzedakah money, a gabbai tzedakah is allowed to use the surplus for whatever he wishes. Whether he's allowed to change the principle is a machloikes, and that's only true if it's a gabbai tzedakah that the community trusts as a generic charity distributor. However, if it's an organization that is dedicated to a specific cause, then even a surplus in a campaign that they would not be permitted to change. Okay, now here's the next sheila. Shimon omed lihitchaten im Rachel. Shimon is about to get married to Rachel. Rachel hayita bat bayit mispar shanim etzel ashir b'shem Lev. Rachel, when she was growing up, was a bat bayit, which means that she was regularly there in the home of a wealthier person named Levi. Leah, shehi menahelet shel haseminar shebo lamda Rachel. Leah is the principal, or the dean of the seminar where Rachel studied, the school where she studied. Alcha etzel Levi sheyitrom lezug litzarch kiniyat dira mikivan shehachatana ani. So she goes to Levi, who knows Rachel from the time that she's a girl, and she asks him, please make a donation so that the couple, where the chassan is poor, they can buy stuff. Ve'achein Levi taram lezug sikum gadol liknot dira, and Levi donated a significant sum to help them buy a dira. Lachar shlosha shavuot hitkarshu b'nei hazug. 3 weeks later, unfortunately, the couple divorced. The Levi to'ein shal dad zeh sheyitkarshu miyad lo haya noten l'shimon l'tzorech hadira. And Levi says, I want my money back. My objective was not to buy you a dira, Shimon. I barely know you. I know the kala. And I've invested a lot of money to your successful marriage, but you don't get to keep the dira. Asikum nishar eitzel haminahelet, and the son is in the possession of the schoolmaster who was the one who approached Levi in the first place. Ha'im haminahelet leah chayevet lahachzir leLevi et hachelek shenatan avor hachatan. Is she obligated to give back the amount that he had contributed, at least for the sake of the chassan? Okay, so the tshuva is haklal hu shebitzdaka holchim batar umdina. The response of this is that when it comes to the laws of tzedakah, we all go according to our best estimate of the situation. So therefore, here too, that's all we can do is make an assumption, which is a very reasonable assumption, that Levi would not have given the money had he known that they would be divorced in 3 weeks. Shelevi lo natan l'Shimon ela b'shvil Rachel shayta bat bayit etzlo v'lo haya noten l'Shimon avur dira al dad zeh sheyitkarshu miyad. His claim is, I never would have given you the money if I knew you were going to get divorced. Lo minan shalacher shabali ad Leah em Levi koch yoter b'masha natan delav adaita deleah natan. And Leah can't say, well, you gave it to me to use my discretion. Levi can say, no, I didn't. I gave it to you for a specific function, and it's not within your purview anymore to make that call. I want the money back. And therefore he sides with the Torem, with the donor. And I think that should act as we'll see a number of shilas. If we were to go through this, we would see a number of shilas having to do with estimating the wishes of the donor. Okay, so this is just the first, apparently, of many. Yeah, right. And it happens in.
The same thing as presumption, whether or not it's a gift or whether or not it was then carried on to marriage.
Right. And you.
Yeah, no, I had a case like that actually in court. I ordered it to give it back. because the guy said I would never have given her the ring and it depends who breaks it off also. She broke it off, right? So he says, well, give me my ring back. If I broke it off, $5,000.
Yeah, well, $5,000 is $5,000.
Yeah.
Okay. He quotes in the footnote a case that's brought by the Beis Yosef. He said, quoting the Mordechai, "Ma'isa be'echad shenasan miktsas nechasav litzdaka be'is moso." There was a fellow that, as he was on his deathbed, he gave a portion of his assets to charity. Liyamim yardu krovav minichsehem, and shortly after he died, his heirs, his relatives, had a fall from wealth. Gedolim hayu omrim sheyesh litein osa tzedakah likrovav, and the adults who saw that these children were struggling, the children heirs were struggling, argued that you should give the charity that he left for others, give it to his heirs. Mishum de'amdinan daite she'ilu yada sheyardu krov minichseim lo haya miniach krova v'nosein lacher. Under the assumption that had he known, it doesn't seem like these are his actual children. It seems from the language that they're like maybe he never got married, never had kids, but he was the rich uncle. And we assume that had he known that his brother's or sister's family would be in dire straits, he never would have left a portion of his estate to tzedakah. He would have given it to them. So therefore, the claim is on behalf of these poor children, give them take the tzedakah, the charity should transfer the money to the heirs. And there are other people who are arguing just the opposite. Why does a person leave money for tzedakah before he dies? He does so because he knows he's going to meet his maker, he's going to be judged, and he wants to be able to face God with an expiated slate, with a clean slate. So part of the way to do that is tshuva, tefillah, and tzedakah, right? So that's why a person gives tzedakah before they die, just like we give tzedakah before our judgment on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So therefore, why would you take that away from him? V'hashda dekrova v'ashirim yimna milasos mitzvah la'atzmo b'yamtin ad shiyardu minichseim v'adosos man yehi nidon. He says, at the time of his death, his relatives were still of reasonable means and self-sufficient. Why would you take away that mitzvah that he did and wait now? But now now that the circumstances have changed, at the time that he was judged, or maybe he's still being judged, you don't want to take that mitzvah away from him. And therefore, the situation in that particular case, argues the Mordechai, according to this second group of adults, is that they should be no different from any other poor person who is coming after the fact, and they should be allowed to collect from the community tzedakah, but you can't force the charity to give them everything that the rich uncle had left. And that's how the Ramah paskins. But you see from that case that's discussed that you go according to you try your best to get inside the head of the donor, is essentially what we're arguing. He says one group of adults says, had he known that his nephews and nieces would become poor, he never would have given away a portion of his estate to charity. And the other group is saying, no, at the time when he died, they were of means, and therefore he wanted the money to be distributed at that time. Al kol panim lameidim shalakuli alma b'tzdakim holchim basar umdana. But what you see from here is, so regardless of what the correct assessment is, it turns out that it's the Ramah Paskins like the latter opinion. But the fact is that this whole case illustrates how you try to get inside the head of the donor and see what would his wishes have been, or what do we feel his wishes were at the time that he made his donation. Chen pasak hashach, and that's how the Shach Paskins, and therefore we go according to umdana. We go according to estimating a person's thoughts. But then he brings from another base Yosef, and he says, "Shenishal Rabbeinu Meir al Reuven shenasan mamono litzdaka." There's another case where Rabbi Meir Mirottenberg, one of the great Rishonim, was asked about a case where Reuven gave his money to tzedakah. Va'amar zeh hamamon yinatein berevach umin harevach yichlu hakahol liskor Rav Hayashar beinehem, and he said, "I want a generous donation to be made, upon my death from my estate, and this money should be used to hire a rabbi for the kehillah." I guess this small shtetl didn't have a rabbi. V'acharei moto sachru hakol Rav Echad shahaya krovam, v'nimsa Rav Echad chatan hamakdish shahaya gadol kemoto. So apparently, after he died, the Kahal hired a certain rabbi who was a relative of the community leaders. But there was another Rav who was a son-in-law of the donor who also wanted the job. And the question is, who should they hire? The Kahal wanted to hire their relative. But the argument against them was, but the donor, his son-in-law, wants the job. Wouldn't you go according to what his wishes would have been? And the response that the Marami Rutenberg gave was that you have to look at the guy's thoughts at the moment that he relinquished his funds. At the moment that he relinquished his funds, his son-in-law had not stepped forward to express interest in the job. Once it came into their hands, into the community's hands, the funds came into the community's hands, it was only then that he expressed the desire for the position. But by that time, it's too late, because at that time, in other words, you can look at the wishes of the donor at the time of the donation, but you can't look at the wishes of the donor post the donation. Uveshut mate Moshe huva b'chikrei leiv hiksha delichora she'elat maharam tluya b'machlokas hagdolim dilael. He says, "V'chilek bein hanidon shel hagdolim shenechluku kodem sheba hekdesh liyad hagabai debezolchem basar umdana levein hanidon shel maram shediber lacher sheba liyad hagabai." So one of the Meforshim tries to explain that this is part of the whole issue from the previous case, like which group of adults have the prevailing argument. Do you go according to the argument of the dead uncle at the time when he made his gift, which at that time his nephews were of means, or do you go according to what he would have wanted had he known after his death that circumstances had changed? Shebazeh, what? Yeah. Shebazeh laholchem pasar umdana. The kevin shebali yad gabai pasa koach hanosein. And basically the argument is that we go according to the opinion that says that you look at his wishes at the time that he made his gift, and then once he relinquishes the funds, you can't retroactively say what he would have wanted if the circumstances change. Okay? Lefize benidon didan lechora nomar shegam kein shelaacher sheba kesef liyad leah. Using that argument, why don't we say over here too that in our Shaila, where the donor Levi gave, let's say, $100,000 so that they could buy a dira, but he says 3 weeks afterwards they get divorced. But by that, the circumstances changed after he made his gift. Maybe we could argue now that he's relinquished the funds, he doesn't have control anymore. But he says, "Ulam nir lanias daiti shetzarach lahosef al divrei hamatayos delo mrinim dechomai dosim yaragabe daiti dei kaasi elo legabe gabai shemetafel b'tzarchit tzibor lo legabe mi shemetafel ba'ofen prati avur ani mesuyam." But he says, I think you have to make a distinction between someone who's holding money for a specific purpose versus a gabai tzedakah, where the money is relinquished with directed giving wishes, but at the same time, there's an understanding that the gabai has full discretion to use the funds like a charitable trust or a charitable foundation. You can advise them, and based on your wishes at the time, they can do. They have to follow your wishes. But if circumstances change after the gift is made, you can't come back afterwards and say, well, based on changed circumstances, the donor would have wanted the money to go to a different cause. That you can't do. But in this situation, since it was given to a private individual, not to, let's say, a charitable trust, it was given to a private individual to use that money for the purpose of the matrimonial home. And now there is no matrimonial situation anymore because the couple is divorced. He feels that you are allowed to, the donor is allowed to ask for his money back, and he still has a controlling portion of that money. And that's really the reason why he paskins that you have to really give the money back to the donor. And certainly, maybe the girl would be entitled to a certain amount, but that would be at his discretion, how much he wants to leave this poor young divorcee, based on her unfortunate circumstances. Okay, we'll have to hold it here. Let me wish you all a good Shabbos, a Gemar Chasima Tova, an easy fast, a meaningful fast, and a really effective Yom Kippur, a successful Yom Kippur. And we are going to take a break because usually you take a break after Yom Kippur.